could actually.
That's right.
We're live. Okay, can we see who's participating there on the screen?
Only if I stop the share from the stream.
Just stop the share of the screen just for a few minutes, just an introduction there.
Sure.
Make sure those mics are on.
Yeah, make sure you're.
All right, looks like we have a few people listening in. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. This is an introduction to local government. It's an opportunity for you to learn a little bit more about how municipal government works, the roles and responsibilities of trustees and staff, and also to give you an overview of Fraser's operations, some of the fundamentals of how our departments are organized and set up, and the roles and responsibilities that we have. And we're also going to talk a little bit about some of the town initiatives that we have. Katie, I see you have your hands full. You got that young one there on your lap there. I don't know who else is going to join us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get started with the presentation. This is mostly going to be a slide presentation. I'll introduce different members of the staff to participate in that. In fact, let me go ahead and just do a quick introduction. My name is Ed Cannon. I'm the town manager. I've been here for about 7 months now. Also joining me, I have my assistant town administrator, Michael Brack. Michael, if you want to spotlight yourself just for a quick second there. There he is. There's Michael. Also in attendance, we have our town clerk, Antoinette McVeigh.
Wave, Antoinette.
We have our town planner, Kathryn Trotter.
It's a parade wave.
And last but not least, we have our public works director, Russell Pennington. Just a few words. If you have a question, I'd like for you to just simply use the raise hand function on there. But what I'd like to do is encourage you maybe to hold your questions to the end. We do have a question and answer period, but sometimes you've got a pressing question or a pressing need. Don't feel bad about raising that hand. We'll try to monitor that so that we can address your concerns there. That being said, what I like to do before I actually start the slideshow is give you an opportunity to introduce yourself as well. I noticed that we have Gregory there. Lewis, if you want to unmute yourself and just kind of introduce yourself, and if you're running for office, maybe why you're choosing to run for office.
Yeah. Hey, can everyone hear me okay?
Hear you loud and clear.
Okay, great. Well, hey, good evening. Yeah, I'm Lewis Gregory. I have moved to Fraser about a couple years ago. I live over in Grand Park on Meadow Trail, and have an interest in local government. I previously served on a planning commission in South Carolina in a municipality called Isle of Palms, right outside of Charleston. So have been involved with city government previously, and I think there's a number of things that the local residents need to be involved with going forward in Fraser. There's a lot going on, a lot of development that's happening, and I think we need to have a rational approach to development. And as we, it's become a very popular place for people to live, and we want to make sure we do it right. We don't want to become like the next Summit County and just get completely overrun. There's a strong identity to Fraser and character that I think the locals would like to preserve, as would I. So I think I can kind of help, guide the town in the next, 3-5 years or more. So that's basically, why I want to get involved. My background, actually, I'm a physician and have a MBA also. Been involved a number of years as a physician executive in a large corporation. So I have a lot of experience in leadership. And so I think I have a lot to offer the town. So.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you so much, Lewis. Appreciate that.
Sure.
Also, we have Katie Souls. If Katie, you want to unmute yourself and stop eating your dinner and maybe say a few words.
Fernando's. This will be my third term on the board, and prior to that, I had served on the Planning Commission. And I feel like I still have more to offer, and I enjoy the work. Water, we're gonna have to take a pretty hard look at water and what we have in the valley and how far it's gonna go. I've come to terms with development to the point where if it's private property and it fits within our regulations, sometimes there's not a whole lot that we can do, but guiding it. And I just wanted to throw my hat back in the ring and take on one more term.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Katie. A
Thank
lot
you.
of what you're going to hear tonight, Katie, is probably going to be a refresher, but we're going to cover all that material anyway.
Okay.
Michael, if you would go ahead and share your screen, we'll start this presentation right off the bat here. Okay, again, thank you all for participating, and I want to thank my staff for helping putting this together. This candidate workshop, I like to call it Local Government 101. It's an introductory course to how local governments work and operate. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Fraser. Our objectives tonight is to introduce the candidates to municipal government and also to town of Fraser operations. We're going to delve into the roles and responsibilities of elected officials and staff and provide an overview of our organization, our operations, and some of the initiatives that the town is currently working on. Again, welcome and thank you for participating. Let me just say that running for public office has a great responsibility to it. You're in a position of public trust. You will serve as a fiduciary to the residents of the town. It's a great responsibility, and quite frankly, I applaud anyone who decides to run for office. And hopefully the information that we share tonight will give you a little bit better understanding of what that entails. Our agenda tonight, I'm going to kick things off with the introduction to local government. That's going to be followed by Antoinette, who's going to talk about the clerk duties and some aspects of how our public meetings run. Typically, we would run with our finance director, but we have a vacancy there. So I'm going to fill in and talk about municipal finance. And that'll be followed by Kathryn Trotter, our town planner, to talk about the planning and development process. Russell then will talk about public works and all of that entails. And then finally, Michael Brack will talk about some projects and initiatives the town is currently working on. So the introduction to local government, this is kind of an overview of what I'm going to be talking about. We're going to talk about the roles and responsibilities of the mayor and the trustee. We'll talk briefly about the roles of boards and commissions and their makeup. Then we'll talk about staff and those relationships between the trustees and staff. And then we'll also talk about the appointed officers. And then next, we're going to talk a little bit about governance. And to me, governance is about how you govern. It's not necessarily the government itself. It's about how you actually operate. We'll talk about the legislative and the quasi-judicial function of the Board of Trustees. We're going to delve into the difference between policy and administration and understanding the reason why there needs to be some separation there. We'll get into our organizational structure. And then followed up with town services and the shared services that we share with Winter Park and also with Granby. And the last two items are important items that need to be touched on. And that is how we deal with conflict of interest and also the state's authority and their code of ethics. So as far as elected officials go, I want to start with the role of a trustee, which is what all of you are going to be running for. The trustee is a member of the community, and they hold a position of public trust. That's the term trustee. They have a fiduciary responsibility to the public to pass effective policy, to work together to promote the interest and the priorities of the town. Our trustees and our mayor are all elected at large. They serve a 4-year term. We have overlapping terms. In 2022, we have 3 trustee positions that are up for re-election. In 2024, we'll have 3 more trustees, plus the mayor's position will also be up for election. The difference between a trustee and the mayor is relatively minor. The mayor works and has the same authority and rights as a trustee. Together, we have 6 trustees and 1 mayor. All of them have equal voting rights. There is no priority given to the mayor necessarily. The mayor does have other priorities and other duties assigned to them, chief among which is they are the spokesperson for the town. They also chair our board meetings and control the order of the meetings as well. They have the signing authority after being blessed by the Board of Trustees to sign contracts and ordinances and enter into contracts for the town. Sometimes that authority can also be delegated down to myself, the town manager. But the elected officials, again, they are all share the same responsibility for passing effective laws, of collaborating with each other and working together and entering into debates to look for the best course of action for the town to protect the interest of its residents. Now, our boards and commissions, we have 2 statutory boards that are required. The first is the Planning Commission. Now, Kathryn's going to talk a little bit more in detail about the Planning Commission, but the Planning Commission oversees the land development and zoning within the town. The state mandates that all municipalities have a Planning Commission. It's composed of 7 members. The mayor serves on the Planning Commission. There is 1 trustee that's appointed by the Board of Trustee, and I believe another trustee that's appointed by the Planning Commission. And then there's 4 members at large. They will also have a chairman who oversees and governs that commission. They serve in more of a quasi-judicial role, and we'll talk about that a little bit more detail in a few minutes. But any land use decisions comes to the Planning Commission, and in certain circumstances, they do have authority to make decisions, but most of the time, their responsibility is to make recommendations to the Board of Trustees. The next board is the Board of Adjustments. Again, this is also a statutory requirement. The Board of Adjustments they're tasked with hearing requests for variances on our zoning and our code. They are kind of the appellate level of some of the planning and land use process. And the Board of Adjustments also has 7 members. They are called when necessary. I think Kathryn will point out that we've probably only had about 4 or 5 Board of Adjustment meetings in the past many years. Mainly because our planning department does a good job of putting together recommendations to the Planning Commission, of working with the developers to avoid the necessary or the necessity of looking for variances. The next 3 committees, and this is a statutory right given to local governments, is the ability to establish committees to help with the governance of the town. We have 3 primary committees. We have a Public Arts Committee, and this committee is composed of, I don't know how many people. There's probably 20 people on this committee because it's such a fun committee to work with. They are responsible for the arts in public places. They help us with with some of our events and festivals like the Mural Festival and so forth. They are very passionate and they are looking for ways to promote funky Fraser as an artistic, eclectic community. The other committee is the Economic Development Advisory Committee. This committee was formed about 5 years ago. It was tasked to address economic development, commercial development within our town of Fraser. One of the chief accomplishments that this committee has performed in recent years was to establish a set of incentives to foster commercial development growth. The Economic Development Advisory Committee, I think, has 5 to 7 members, and it is staffed with one of our staff members to serve as an advisory role with this. Our last committee is the Wastewater Advisory Committee. This is a 5-member committee. We actually met this morning. The Water Advisory Committee weighs in on issues dealing with our water and wastewater utilities, our collection and distribution system, capital projects. They do serve an important role, but they are not a ruling body. They simply make recommendations to the Board of Trustees. The staff, let's start with the manager. Our town of Fraser operates under the council manager form of government. And this means that the Board of Trustees and the mayor hire a town manager to actually run the operations of the town and to oversee all those operations. The mayor has a more of a ceremonial role in that position, and the manager has broad authority over the staff operations. As the town manager, I take my directions from the Board of Trustees, and I serve as the liaison between staff and the departments and the Board of Trustees. We're organized also functionally under departments. We have a planning and development department, public works. I know I'm going to miss one of these. And each of these departments, finance department. And the reason I forgot is because I'm giving that discussion tonight. And they're functionally organized. They have a department head who has broad authority over the operations within their department. The department managers report to me and take direction from me. And together we work to support and perform and execute town operations. And the last thing I'd like to talk about is that our appointed officers by state statutes, statutory towns, which is what Fraser is required to appoint a treasurer, a town clerk, and a town attorney. Our treasurer is typically dual-hatted with our finance director. The clerk is Antoinette, and she's going to talk a little bit more about her duties. And then the town attorney was, we just recently hired Kent Whitmer of the Whitmer Law Firm to serve as our town attorney. The appointed officers, again, let me get back to the manager's duty. The manager has all hiring, firing, discipline authority over staff. The manager will also hire that person that will ultimately serve as the clerk. The only person that the town manager will not be part of as far as the hiring is the town attorney. I might be a little incorrect on that. Antoinette's shaking her head. So, but I do have operational management authority over the appointed officers. So we can get the slide to change.
Try again.
So next, I'd like to talk a little bit about governance, which is the act or the manner of actually governing. The Board of Trustees have basically 2 fundamental roles. The first role is to be the legislative branch of the Fraser government. This is where the Board of Trustees establish policy, which is known as laws, and they do this through the passing of ordinances, approving budgets for the execution of that policy, and also to ensure that the policies are carried out through the town manager. The legislative function is more of a freewheeling type of approach where there's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of investigation into the pros and cons of executing a different set of direction. Staff support is very heavy here. The staff will do a lot of the heavy lifting, evaluating the legalities, the state statutes, the policy decisions, and so forth, and make recommendations to the Board of Trustees. The Board of Trustees in that legislative role will also listen to the voice of the residents and then make effective policy decisions based on that. The next role is that of a quasi-judicial role. Occasionally, the Board of Trustees and also our Planning Commission may hold public hearings, and that is to determine the rights of those who will appear before it. In this function, the Board of Trustees focus more on due process and also the protection of rights. During these quasi-judicial hearings and proceedings, the Board of Trustees is not setting new policy, but is simply applying the law to the facts that are gathered at the hearing to arrive at the decision. And again, it's about protecting due process and hearing the voice of the applicants and any opposers to that, to whatever that quasi-judicial decision needs to be. Quasi-judicial proceedings also require advance notice, 14 days notice. That notice must be published. The proceedings must be recorded, and the Board of Trustees must not consider any information that's received outside of the record. In other words, they only rule on the evidence that's presented during that quasi-judicial proceeding. To consider evidence outside of that, maybe past history or so forth, is called ex parte communication, and that is not to be part of the quasi-judicial process. So I'm sure that Kathryn will talk a little bit more about the quasi-judicial, but if not, that's the big overview picture of that. So I don't see any hands up, so we will keep going. As I mentioned before, I'm sorry, Lewis has his hand up. So Lewis, go ahead if you have a question.
Yeah, Ed, I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt your flow necessarily, but I had a couple of questions. One was, why are there so many trustees on the commissions? Because I'm not used to seeing that. We didn't have any trustees. We had a town manager basically, running those commissions. It seems like with 3 trustees on a commission, it really kind of, I don't want to say pollutes the process, but it should be an independent, and that commission should be making a recommendation to the board, and the board ultimately has a final decision. But that seems a little different than what I'm used to seeing.
Okay, Lewis, that's a great question. We have, I think sometimes we ask that question ourselves. Every state is different. Every state has their own rules and regulations governing the composition of boards and commissions. In Colorado, I believe the Planning Commission actually calls for 3 trustees on the board. And if they don't, and I don't mind admitting if I'm wrong, our municipal code also spells out what that composition and makeup is. To give you another example, we just changed the complement of the Water Wastewater Committee. We actually had 4 trustees on that committee and 3 members of the public, and we recently amended the code to reduce the amount of trustees to 2, bringing that down to a 5-member organization. I can understand that maybe from the outside looking in, that having a quorum of the trustees on a committee as small as the Water Wastewater Committee could create some issues and conflicts because you have essentially the voting block of the Board of Trustees making a decision at a committee level instead of bringing that to the Board of Trustees. So I appreciate the question. Maybe that's something that another question that can come up maybe after the election.
Okay. I just wanted to throw that out now while you were talking about it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a great question. So policy versus administration is an important topic, I think, to elected officials, but also to staff. There needs to be a separation between policy and administration. As a trustee, let's back it up one there, Michael. As a trustee, you're responsible for establishing policy, and policy is the laws of the organization. It goes into our municipal code. You're also responsible for establishing those strategic priorities and objectives of the town. I can use this model here that you see on your screen. I call it the 3F model. And I use the term focus, fences, and freedom. Those are the 3 Fs. The trustees are responsible for that focus, for that policy, for that long-range strategic objective, whether that be affordable housing or sustainability initiatives. Perhaps it might be to build a new town hall or a facility, or to create another initiative, maybe to expand our parks. That's the focus, and that's the policy. And they'll also pass laws that will make that a priority, and pretty much that's that in stone. But they also can establish the fences through policy. One of the fences could be your budget, which is one of the major policy documents of the town of Fraser and of the Board of Trustees. Those become the limits within which you shape your administrative role to achieve that objective. Other fences could be time constraints, legal constraints, and so forth. So the trustees are responsible for that focus and the fences. Administration works within that triangle. This is where your staff will work with a certain amount of freedom to achieve that objective while staying within the boundaries established through those fences. This is where I operate. This is where staff operates. The town manager will give operational direction and operational policy guidance to department heads and department directors. Department directors will pass that on to the staff, and together we will work to achieve that objective. The reason we need a separation between policy and administration is under the council manager form of government. The town manager is hired and given broad administrative authority over how that operations is run and managed. So my role is to provide leadership and management oversight and direction to staff to achieve those objectives. Another way of looking at that, we'll move on to this next slide, is something called aligned influence. And this pretty much describes the relationship between the Board of Trustees and the town manager and staff. Your town Board of Trustees provides direction. They are there to protect and enable staff to achieve those objectives. Those directions come in the form of policy documents, budgets, codes, and laws. The manager then is responsible for leading and managing and accomplishing those objectives. And staff's responsibility there is to be the effective execution of reaching those organizational objectives. And the way the communication flows typically in a council manager form of government is the Board of Trustees will communicate to the town manager, and then the town manager will disseminate that down to staff in the same way going back up. We are prohibited from taking requests directly to staff. That's the reason you hired me. So I'm accountable to the Board of Trustees. Staff is accountable to me. And if we move on to the next slide, we'll illustrate that a little bit better. As you see, this is the organizational structure of the town of Fraser. Now, the residents of Fraser have overall responsibility, and the Board of Trustees are accountable to the residents of Fraser. They are the check to the power of the legislative function. They do this, they exercise this through voting and through electing officers. There's also opportunities if they want to recall or pass referendums. The Board of Trustees, however, have oversight and direction over the town manager. They hire the town manager and they give the town manager direction and hold the town manager accountable. And the town manager oversees all the operations of the town. And as you can see through the organizational structure, each department director has a scope of responsibility that they're also responsible for. So a quick word about our town services. Most of you probably are aware of this, but I just wanted to touch on this. These services are arranged again functionally. Let's start with administration. This is where the town manager operate, the town clerk. We're responsible for public records, public information, grant management, a lot of legal research, a lot of coordination and research on policy matters as well. The finance department is responsible for the budgets, audits, accounts receivable, accounts payable, payroll, utility billing, capital improvement planning, and also human resource management. Our planning department deals with land development, land use, development review, and zoning. Also, our planning department also has a few extra duties that we're happy to have, and that is to do some grants associated with land use as well. Public Works is responsible for street maintenance, snow removal, stormwater management, parks, trails maintenance, and so forth. And our public utilities manage the water and sewer collection and distribution system in our town. We also have one other service that I'd like to touch on, and that's our wastewater treatment facility. Now, the wastewater treatment facility is not necessarily a direct service of the town. This is an operation that's performed in partnership with two other agencies. We have the town of Fraser, Winter Park Ranch Sanitation District, and the Grand County Water and Sanitation District number 1. The wastewater treatment facility is governed by the Joint Facility Oversight Committee, and this is made up with 3 members from each of these organizations. They meet quarterly, and they will make operational oversight and direction to the joint facility. Some of our shared services, because of our size, we do share services with Winter Park. For example, public safety, we have the Fraser Winter Park Police Force. Chief Glenn Trainer is in charge of that force. Great guy to work with and good guy to know. He is housed in Winter Park. He's actually, we have an agreement with Winter Park that we will pay for a certain percentage of those services to cover our cost. Fire protection is provided by the East Grand Fire Protection District. This is not a shared service. This is simply their own independent protection district. Chief Todd Hallsworth is the chief of that district. Our building permits and inspections are part of the Winter Park, Fraser, Granby Building Department. This department is located at the Winter Park Town Hall. They provide building inspections, building permit services to all 3 organizations. Our public transit is a partnership between ourselves and Winter Park. I believe that there's also some contributions made by the town of Granby and Grand County. The transit system is known as the LIFT. The interim manager is Michael Koch. And another shared service we have is we share municipal court with Winter Park, and that's under the jurisdiction of Judge Ron Carlson. So before I move this on and allow Antoinette her chance to talk about the municipal clerk, I'd like to talk a little bit about conflict of interest. These are important for us to consider and important for you as trustees to consider as well. State statutes, and just by the way, the CRS that you see on the screen stands for Colorado Revised Statutes. The 31 stands for Title 31, Chapter 4, Section 404, paragraphs 2 and 3. Paragraph 2 says any member of the governing body of any city or town who has a personal or private interest in a matter proposed or pending before the governing body shall disclose such interest to the governing body and shall not vote thereon, and shall refrain from attempting to influence the decisions of the other members of the governing body in voting on the matter. We've seen times when there's have been conflicts of interest, and I don't want to give specific examples, but I will say that if a conflict of interest arises in a town board meeting, we would expect the trustee that has the conflict of interest to disclose that conflict, and typically they will recuse themselves from the conversation, sometimes even leaving the dais and going sitting among the audience. And again, this is a statutory requirement. Paragraph 3 says a member of the governing body or of any city or town may still vote, even though they may have a conflict. However, they can only vote if it's necessary to obtain a quorum or to otherwise enable the body to act, and if he complies with the voluntary disclosure provisions provided under Title 24 of Colorado statutes. Conflicts of interest, that personal or private interest. Think of it this way. Think of if you own a business, let's say in town, and the board is going to make a ruling on maybe the zoning or conditional use of that building, because you have a personal or private interest in that, or perhaps you have a family member with a personal or private interest. That means that you have a conflict and you should disclose that conflict and therefore recuse yourself from that conversation. Next is the Code of Ethics. Again, this is under Title 24 of our Colorado statutes. And this is verbatim. Holding public trust, a public office is a public trust, and you must carry out your duties for the benefit of the people within the municipality. Betrayal of that public trust departs from your fiduciary duties, can even lead to legal proceedings. So the Code of Ethics applies not only to elected, but also to appointed officers and even employees within towns and municipalities. So some of the fundamentals of the Code of Ethics is do not disclose or use confidential information for personal gain or for gain for family members. Do not accept gifts of substantial value or that have a substantial economic benefit to you. And do not acquire or hold interest in any business that will provide economic benefit to you based on your actions as a trustee, or try to detrimentally act in such a way that is detrimental to a competing business from you. And that's basically the Code of Ethics. You can get more guidance by following Title 24 of the Colorado Revised Statutes. And with that, I'm going to hand this off to Antoinette so she can talk about the municipal clerk duties.
So my name is Antoinette, Antoinette McVeigh. I've been with the town now for 5 years. I have been appointed as a town clerk for 2 terms, and at the election at this in April, I will be up for my reappointment shall the town board decide to reappoint me. And then, so the town,
Antoinette,
yes.
Lewis did have a question.
Oh, okay.
We'd like to give an opportunity to ask
Sure.
that.
No, I'm sorry, Antoinette. I didn't mean you. I thought maybe it was a timely question based on Ed's comments. So you talk a lot about fiduciary responsibility of trustees, right? You know what? I guess my concern, what I've noticed, when trustees sort of blatantly ignore recommendations from the town manager, planner, attorney, etc. I just find that kind of odd that you have trustees that blatantly ignore the recommendations based on the town code and based on the attorney's legal advice on matters. That just, I don't know. It just seems like I'm not sure what type of action could be taken, but it seems like that's a problem when a trustee really kind of goes rogue and just kind of blatantly ignores what you guys are recommending based on your code and based on the legal representation. So anyway, I thought I would just throw that out, and I don't know if you have any comments on that, but
Louis, that's a great observation, and thank you for that. I will say from a staff's perspective that our job is not to worry about the outcome of those decisions, those policy decisions by the board. Our job is to support the Board of Trustees, to provide the best advice that we can. Same with our town attorney. I can't speak for, I wouldn't necessarily label trustees' actions as necessarily rogue. But I will say for my part that the outcome of the decision of the board, that policy decision by the Board of Trustees, is not something that I'm going to sweat over, to put it bluntly. I'm going to do the job to the best of my ability, and so are my staff. And quite frankly, I've got a great staff. They're very conscientious. They're very thorough. They dig and they find the right information, and they put together some good recommendations to our board there. So we're just here to support the Board of Trustees. And that's probably a discussion among the board members themselves as far as what's leading them to certain policy decisions. I hope that answered your question.
yeah, no, I know it puts you in a difficult situation. So that's just an observation that have made over, seeing a lot of the actions over the last couple of years. But anyway, Antoinette, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you.
So as Ed said earlier, the clerk is a required position per the Colorado Revised Statutes. Next slide. So the town clerk does report directly to the town manager, and I am a department of one. I do not have any direct reports within the town. So the town clerk is the designated election official for the town, which means I administer all of the elections, and our election will be April 5th. And a small recap of the elections, the clerk creates the election calendar. I create the petition, and I verify the signatures of registered Fraser voters to validate the petition. I'm the one that creates the ballots, and I would also print and mail the ballots. I hire and train all of the election judges for the town, and the judges are the ones that actually process the ballots and tally the votes. I am one that's present to help, but on the day of the election, it's really the election judges that do administer the election on the day of. And then on this election, we have 3 trustee candidates on the ballot, and there are no other items that'll be on the ballot for this election in April. So the Records Management and Colorado Open Records Act. So I believe one of the top priorities of the clerk's office is the records management of the town, so that we make sure that all of the records are entered into our repository, and I make sure I am a part of executing all of the town's documents and making sure that they're saved into our repository. And that can be anything from property files to contracts, resolutions, ordinances, minutes, and historical documents, as the town needs everything saved. And then core requests are the Colorado Open Records Act requests. And these come directly to the town clerk, and I fulfill those requests along with any staff members necessary to help fulfill those requests, which most of the time is the town planner, Kathryn. And thank you. So Ed kind of went into detail about the Board of Trustees, the planning commissions, and other committees. So I won't go too into detail about those committees, other than, we did talk a little bit more about, so the Board of Trustees, they do meet the first and third Wednesday of every month at 6 p.m. and we do provide dinner for the Board of Trustees. So my role in the Board of Trustees is that I help prepare all the agendas packets, and I would attend all of the meetings, I write the minutes, and help to write resolutions and ordinance as needed and directed by the town manager. And I attend all of the planning commission meetings also, and this consists of, again, the mayor, 2 trustees, and 4 at-large members. And they meet the 4th Wednesday of most months, and they meet at 6:30, and the town does not provide dinner for that committee. And the town planner and this committee does prepare all of the agendas and the packets, but the town clerk does attend all of the meetings, and I write the minutes and assist the town planner with whatever she may need for the meetings. And again, the commission is required per the Colorado revised statutes. The wastewater committee, again, it's 2 trustees and 3 at-large members. We kind of went over that. And then the economic advisory committee is 5 to 7 members at large. They meet the fourth Tuesday monthly or as needed. There is no staff on this committee, and the committee makes recommendations to the board. And these committee members are appointed biannually after the elections, which is also the same as the water wastewater committee. And then the public arts committee consists of 5 to 11 members at large. So that committee does fluctuate greatly in its composition. And they meet the 3rd Friday monthly. This is a staff committee that makes recommendations to the trustees. No staff or trustees reside on this committee either, and they're also appointed biannually after the elections. And again, they do things such as the Fraser Mural Festival, and we have a new festival this year called the Fire and Ice, and they are heavily involved in the art in public places. That committee is doing some really great things. And so you can kind of see in my picture, it's kind of funny. I thought it was, somebody tell me this isn't a massive waste of time. I hope that none of our committees ever meet and is a total waste of time for anybody, because it's a big deal. A time commitment for anybody to sit on any of the committees, boards, or the town board. And it's a big deal, and we value the input from everybody. And then I wanted to talk a little bit more about the open meetings and the sunshine law and executive sessions. So open meetings is a meeting that consists of 3 or more trustees or commissioners. All meetings must be posted no later than 24 hours prior to a meeting, and this gives the public the option to attend a meeting. And no official business can be conducted without a posting of meetings. And one thing that we try to make very clear with our trustees is a virtual meeting can occur if 3 or more trustees email one another in a group. It creates a virtual meeting that the public cannot attend because it's not posted, so it's not permissible. The Colorado revised statutes actually just did change as far as when somebody does an open records request. Part of when the board is trying to schedule meetings, making comments about non-policy matters, those are no longer open to core requests, as it is a general function of business that there is no decisions being made. So that just changed in the statutes just very recently. And then executive sessions. So to enter into an executive session, it must be posted on an agenda, and 2/3 quorum must be present in order to enter into an executive session. And the Colorado revised statute have very specific reasons why you can go into an executive session. If it does not fall within those reasons, it cannot be an executive session, and it must be held in a public forum. And executive sessions are not for the public to attend. It's for the board or the commission to have a conversation without the public. And then generally, they would come out of an executive session, and often it involves a town attorney who would be giving some sort of legal advice as to a direction for the board or the commission to consider. And then they would generally come out of the executive session to actually make a decision on that item. And then the town clerk administers the licensing for the town. So the first is the liquor license. So the town clerk is the liaison for the liquor licensing board, which is also the board of trustees. The clerk does have administrative functions and also prepares public hearings for licensing. So administrative functions are things such as renewing licenses, small modifications of premises, change of managers, some small administrative functions. And public hearings would go to the licensing board, which would be larger items like new liquor licensing, or if there are any large modifications or potential violations that don't allow a license to be renewed administratively. And it's really the same for the marijuana licensing. Again, the clerk is the liaison for the marijuana licensing board and really has the same administrative and functions as the liquor licensing. The town clerk administers all special events. Usually the smaller special events are approved administratively, but if we have a large function, a large event, like the snowball, if anybody was here, was a huge event, and that does go through the town board for approval for something that's a very large event. I do administer all the mobile vending and transient licensing, and these are like all the food trucks that we're seeing pop up around town. There's a simple application, and I do approve those administratively, along with speaking with any other departments as necessary. And then the business licensing, which renews annually, I administer those. And then the short-term rentals, I administer the program and I issue the licenses for that program currently. So that's the very high level overview of what the town clerk does. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me grab the clicker from Antoinette. First of all, we could not operate without a town clerk, and to have someone as wonderful as Antoinette is quite frankly a blessing for the town of Fraser. She keeps me on track. She keeps department heads on tracks, and quite frankly, she keeps the board of trustees on track. So appreciate everything Antoinette does, and her experience, her demeanor really helps our operations tremendously. So we'll talk a little bit about municipal finance. I'm going to give an overview of of what a fund is and why we use fund accounting. We'll talk a little bit about the budget process. I'll talk about revenues, and then finish up with our requirement for doing audits. So municipal finance is a lot different than private sector finance. The way we do things and organize is quite different than the private sector. We use fund accounting, and the fund is basically a grouping of related accounts that's used to contain control over those resources that are segregated for a specific activity or objective. We have a number of funds, and I'll be going through those. But all the funds of Fraser are divided into three separate categories. One is governmental funds, the next is proprietary funds, and finally fiduciary funds. So the government funds is probably the fund that you're most familiar with, the most that you've heard about. Governmental funds are supported by taxes, and they support tax-supported activities. Our largest fund is called the general fund. This provides for the general functions and the operations and services of the town, which include administration, planning, law enforcement, streets, property maintenance, and so forth. The general fund is funded through property sales taxes, use taxes, and we'll go through that in a later slide. We also have a restricted revenue fund. This fund is funded by a 1% dedicated sales tax that was passed by the voters probably in 2017 or 2018. And the proceeds of that 1% sales tax are used for transportation, trails, and also for capital project expenditures. We track this restricted revenue fund separate from the general fund and other funds as well. Our capital asset fund is for long-term maintenance of capital assets, for example, streets, buildings, parks, and trails, and so forth. This fund is primarily funded through transfers from the general fund. We also have a conservation trust fund, in which we receive proceeds from the state for lottery proceeds, and it provides for open space and recreational related capital projects. Another governmental fund is the Cousins Ranch Open Space Fund. This is funded by grants and also from transfers from the general fund. And it provides for those capital projects and improvements that are part of the Fraser River Corridor Master Plan that lie within Cousins Ranch Open Space. And Kathryn, in a few minutes, will give you an overview of what that open space looks like. We also have a debt service fund. This is where we account for funding that will pay for principal interest on bonded debt and any bonding fees that are responsible or that are tied to that. Currently, we do not have any bonded debt for the town. The town has not issued a bond issue in quite some time. We have 2 short-term loans that will both be paid off during 2022. So essentially, the town operates debt-free. But if we ever do issue a bond, this is where we'll put those proceeds to pay for that. And the last one is the Capital Equipment Replacement Fund. This takes transfers from other funds, and it's used to provide for those vehicle and heavy equipment purchases that we need so that we can keep the roads clear and keep the traffic moving. Next is our proprietary funds. These are also known as enterprise funds. Proprietary funds are really used to report activities that function as a business. In other words, their funds are paid for through user fees, and because of the nature of an enterprise, all those user fees have to pay for all of the operating cost and capital cost of those 2 activities. We have 2 proprietary funds. The first is a water fund. And this pays for the water that's delivered to your house, the treatment. It's part of your water bill that you will pay on a quarterly basis. And the next is the wastewater fund. Again, this handles the collection system when you flush your toilets and our process for getting that down to the wastewater treatment facility. The last fund I talk about is the Fiduciary Fund. And the Fiduciary Fund, again, is used to account for assets that are held in trust for others. I mentioned that earlier that we have a joint wastewater treatment facility. Its proper name is the Upper Fraser Valley Wastewater Treatment Facility. We just call it the Wastewater Treatment Plant. The fund is called the Joint Facility Fund. It's a fiduciary fund because we are responsible for accounting for those assets and paying for the operations on behalf of our 2 partners in that organization. The cost for the operating is split 3 ways. The town of Fraser will pay some of those costs based on some of our wastewater fees. And then the 2 sanitation districts will also pay their portion of those costs. And again, they're overseen by the Joint Facility Oversight Committee. And even though this is a fiduciary fund, the Joint Facility Fund is still run as an enterprise because all of the costs have to be paid for by user fees. So I think the biggest part about municipal finance is the budget. And as I mentioned before, the budget is the single most important policy statement for the town of Fraser. And this is important because it will list all of your expenditures. It will list all of your capital cost. It will list your contractual costs and obligations as well. It also has to be balanced by state law. And then the budget itself will list all those yearly revenues and expenditures of the town. Typically, the budget process starts in mid-year, sometime in mid-summer, when the town manager meets with the finance director, and we establish those parameters and timelines and budget calendars for making those revenue projections, and also for scheduling work sessions with our board of trustees as they review the budget. Next, we invite department directors and to present their projected operations and maintenance budgets and capital expenditures for the coming year. At the same time, our finance department is also working on contractual cost increases for example, the transit service, and also for payroll cost expenditures. And all of the expenditures of the town are evaluated against a certain amount of criteria. First of all, we want to bounce these off of our town's strategic priorities. In the summer of 2021, the town board established two priorities. The first was affordable housing, and the second priority was about controlling and overseeing and the proper land use through the development process. So our town budget is based on those strategic priority. It's also based on our operational needs. We know that it takes a certain amount of money to refuel all of our trucks, and snow plows have to be replaced periodically, and vehicles wear out, and so do computers. We also consider those intergovernmental agreements and contractual agreements like our police service, our shared service for the police, our cost associated with the transit as well. And just to give you an example, transit contract is being renewed this summer, and we are expecting to see approximately a 50% increase in our transit cost. So part of our budget discussions in 2022 will be making sure that 1% restricted revenue sales tax can cover the cost of this increase in our contractual obligation for our lift service. And finally, we also consider legal obligations, contractual obligations, and so forth. So the budget process, that's how it starts. Usually by September, the town manager and the finance director have had a chance to meet with all the departments, have started to put together those numbers for the operational cost, maintenance costs, capital improvements. And we'll begin to schedule a series of meetings or work sessions for our board. We'll give board members time and the ability to evaluate the budget, to weigh in, to establish priorities, to change priorities if need be. We have an obligation to submit a proposed draft budget to the Department of Local Affairs by the 15th of October each year. And statutorily, we have to pass a budget and get that to the state by the 15th of December each year, or excuse me, the 31st of December. So that's the budget process. Another aspect of that is that I didn't really want to get into too much is we also do some planning for capital expenditures. We typically call this a 5 or a 10-year capital improvement plan. Each year of that capital improvement year, that first year is usually rolled into the capital projects of the upcoming budgeted year. I know I'm going through this pretty darn quick, but again, this is supposed to be high level here. In 2022, the general fund, just the general fund, I want to give you an idea of what we project for our revenues. As you can see, sales tax leads this list. We're projecting over $3.2 million in sales tax generation. And our trends have shown that our sales taxes have been increasing and have been increasing somewhere from 14 to 18% every year for the past 3 to 4 years. Property taxes, we do have a low mill levy here in Fraser, and in the state of Colorado, municipal governments are funded primarily through sales taxes and not property taxes. But we will generate over $500,000 in property taxes. We have an assortment of other taxes, highway use tax and so forth that comes to us from the state. We're projecting that about $75,000. Use taxes include taxes on building materials that are consumed or used here in the town of Fraser. And also there's use taxes on motor vehicles. We expect that will generate about almost $400,000 in revenue in 2022. Licenses and permits, $215,000. There are grant opportunities that we pursue. We're projecting roughly over $220,000 for that. We also charge for certain services within the town. For example, we rent out the historic church. There are other charges for services. For example, the drop is a great example, and Michael's going to talk about that in more detail. And those charges for services will account for about $257,000. We also have miscellaneous revenues. I hate the term miscellaneous, but there's just no other way to group that. And they will constitute about $184,000 based on past trends. The final category is transfers. We do take transfers into the general fund. A good example of a transfer is maybe our water, wastewater utilities. Through their fee generation, will transfer money to our vehicles for vehicle replacement. Transfers could also mean transfers from our general fund reserves as well. And in balancing the budget, revenues plus reserves are considered your revenues, and they have to be more than your expenditures to pass a balanced budget. So in 2022, we're seeing about $9.3 million worth of revenue that is generated. That's up significantly over last year. And when we budget for revenues, we budget conservatively. So we usually budget on the low end. And for expenditures, we budget on the high end. That just gives us a little bit of cushion to operate for the municipal budget. The last thing I'll talk about is every year every town has to submit to an annual audit. And the audit is provided by an independent firm. Typically, these firms will come in and they do some preliminary work. They'll pull documents. Their job is to ensure that our reporting is in compliance with state laws and with our own municipal code. This is not a forensic audit. We're not looking to see if there's blatant violations or if there's any theft or graft going on or embezzlement. We're simply looking to see that the reporting and our accounting practices meet state and local guidelines. And that is the whole purpose of an audit. To give you one example of a forensic audit, I came from Illinois, and several years ago, there was a town called Dillon that ended up missing $53 million. And the FBI came in that case and performed a forensic audit. And you've probably seen the movie All the Queen's Horses, where where the town clerk was spending the rest of her life in jail for embezzling that. Not that we have any threat of that here. So unless there's no questions, we'll move on and let Kathryn talk about planning and development.
Okay, my name is Kathryn Trotter, and I'm the town planner for the town of Fraser. And in fact, I'm the only one in the planning department, so it's a one-woman show here. I've been with the town since 2004, and I have a master's degree in urban planning, and I am a member of the American Institute of Certified Planners. So, town of Fraser, leaving planet Earth. What does town planner do? So this position, oops, sorry, my mic isn't on. Could you guys hear me? Okay. So this position is responsible for zoning code, subdivision regulation, land use administration, interpretation, enforcement, and amendments. I'm responsible for coordinating, reviewing, and processing development proposals and applications. I need to work effectively with elected and appointed officials, public and private agencies, citizen group, developers, consultants, staff members, and the public. I need to be preparing and presenting technical and administrative reports and staff recommendations to various boards. I'm responsible for policy review, code updates, and code development. I coordinate and prepare reports on development and land use proposals before various boards and commissions. I assist and educate the public about the municipal planning and development process, and I'm involved in grant application preparation and administration. And this slide shows an aerial of the town of Fraser. The town of Fraser comprises approximately 2,300 acres, and we have a year-round population of about 1,500 with large fluctuations in population. Oh, okay. Do you want me to repeat what you missed? Okay. And we have large seasonal fluctuations as a result of the tourist economy, and also second homeowners. So this is our official zoning map for the town of Fraser. And just wanted to point out the areas in red are zoned business, commercial, and the kind of beige and yellow areas are residential districts. The blue area is all planned development district, and actually 75% of the town of Fraser is zoned planned development district. On the east side of Highway 40, we have the Rendezvous Plan Development District, and that's approximately 443 acres. On the west side of Highway 40 is the Grand Park Plan Development District, and that's just over 1,300 acres. The area in green is zoned designated open space. So I am kind of the permitting queen. So I deal with building permits and sign permits and grading permits. The Public Works Department does deal with access permits for building or constructing in the right of way. As Ed mentioned, we do have a joint building department with the town of Winter Park and the town of Fraser and the town of Granby. Everything gets submitted electronically to the town of Winter Park and is shuffled internally to us through our Excel software. And we are on 2015 building codes currently. The inspections are all called into the town of Winter Park, and Rick Dennison is our on-site field inspector, but the town of Fraser is responsible for water meter inspections in addition to water and sewer main tap inspections. So as mentioned previously, I am the staff liaison for the Planning Commission. Again, it's a 7-member commission, as we've already mentioned. The mayor and 2 trustees sit on that board, along with 4 members of Fraser at large. Again, this was repeated earlier. We meet on the 4th Wednesday of every month. Antoinette is at that meeting usually with me and does the minutes. And we, again, typically meet once a month. So the Planning Commission is involved in reviewing the land use and zoning requests, and this just shows kind of an overview of the land development life cycle. We do have a minor subdivision process, which is typically reviewed and approved at a staff level, and that is for 4 units or lots or less. And anything greater than 4 units or lots is considered a major subdivision. And that would require Planning Commission and Town Board approval. And typically an applicant would come to me with their concept. We would invite them to refine their concept a little bit more. And then we would have a meeting with the Fraser team here, planning and public works. We would take a look at the planning part of things. Does it meet the code? We look at the height, we look at the zoning, parking space issues. Is that an allowable use? And then they would officially submit a sketch plan to us, which is typically processed at a staff level. And again, I would get with my team here. We would provide comments back to the applicants, and then they would formally submit, if it's a subdivision, they would formally submit a preliminary plat, which would be reviewed at a public hearing in front of the Planning Commission. The code does allow for a push-up option, which could go to the town board. And then the applicant would again refine their design and their concept and their application and come back for a public hearing at the Planning Commission. And then it would go on to town board for final action. After the town board approves that subdivision plat, that plat would then get recorded in hot sulfur in conjunction with a subdivision improvement agreement, which would provide surety for all the required infrastructure. And then that infrastructure would go through the acceptance process and the warranty process, and then eventually be turned over to the town. So the Planning Commission and the Planning Department is clearly very involved in the municipal code, specifically the Land Development Code. And the Planning Commission would be the first reviewing body for any changes to the subdivision regulations and or the zoning code. And things like the sign code and parking and, you know, it just takes a lot to get through the code. It's not always a fun process, but, you know, what the staff does is we see what works and what doesn't work with different applicants over the year. And we try to document that as it relates to, again, the subregs and the zoning and also the design criteria and construction standards. And, you know, we review those documents and provide revisions as necessary. So the planning department and the planning commission is also involved in long-term planning. So the comprehensive plan was last updated in 2010, and that was done in-house. So that's certainly up for renewal. More recently, we focused on a smaller portion of the town of Fraser and focused on a downtown strategic plan. And that was done in 2017 with the help of some technical assistance we received from community builders. And that process was very successful. We had lots of people involved in that as it relates to community engagement. And what we're doing right now is implementing a lot of those recommendations in the strategic plan. And we also have moved forward with applying for some grants as a result of that strategic plan. And really, if you don't have the plans in place, you're not going to get the grant funding. And we had applied for 2 CDOT grants as a result of this downtown strategic plan because CDOT was very involved in the strategic plan, which allows us to move forward with putting about $1 million of improvements into the downtown Fraser area. So we got an additional crosswalk. We added new sidewalks. We did some pedestrian refuge islands at that new crossroad and then 2 existing crosswalks. Did some bulb outlets and really increase the curb appeal and the access management in the downtown Fraser area. So it really began the transformation of downtown Fraser, in my opinion. So the other piece that I'm involved in is grant application preparation and administration. And this is something that I've been pretty successful with over my years here at the town of Fraser. And it's something that I really enjoy. I find it challenging, but rewarding, obviously, if you get the funding. And one of the projects that we did a couple of years ago was we applied for a GOCO planning grant, Great Outdoors Colorado, to help us draft a Fraser River Corridor master plan through Cousins Ranch Open Space. And this came about after we installed a pedestrian footbridge just south of the Lions Ponds. And we heard some grumblings in the community. Oh, you guys put a bridge to nowhere. So we went back out to the community to really find out what they wanted. And again, we had a lot of community involvement and engagement here because everyone is so passionate about the Cousins Ranch open space. And this map just shows that area. And, you know, the town of Fraser is super lucky to have this asset in the town. It's 120 acres of dedicated open space, you know, going from Rendezvous Road at the south all the way to the Lions Ponds at the north. And it really is an incredible riparian habitat. And we're actually applying for a grant right now from Parks and Wildlife. And I wouldn't talk about it if I didn't feel pretty confident that we're going to get it, because we did a presentation last week, because I don't like talking about these things unless we get the money. But here's a drone aerial of the Cousins Ranch open space. And the project is to construct a new trail on the west side of the Fraser River. And again, we had a lot of the community wanting some more outdoor amenities in this open space area. And, you know, we've seen a lot of, in recent years, outdoor recreational usage has far outpaced capacity. And Grand County has experienced a significant increase in visitation for outdoor recreational purposes, especially during the pandemic. And this particular project will provide another amenity to help mitigate natural resource and outdoor recreation issues associated with the influx of people using our amenities as a result of COVID. So we're trying to best prepare for and protect natural assets in the face of a growing outdoor recreation tourist economy. And we really need to manage our playground for outdoor experiences in a manner that proactively preserves, conserves, and enhances natural resources. And, I do try to remain calm, but sometimes that's a little bit challenging. And I think all the folks here can vouch for that. I have a lot of passion for the town of Fraser, and I have for a long time. And, the ultimate goal is to build community and build a better Fraser and, move forward with implementing a lot of the recommendations in these plans, because we've gone out to the community and asked them what they wanted. And I feel that we need to provide those for them. And on to Public Works.
Thank you, Kathryn. All right. A good looking crew there. Hi, good evening. My name is Russell Pennington, the Public Works Director. I've been with the town for about 3 years. I am a civil engineer and a registered professional engineer with the state of Colorado. Public Works, as far as I'm concerned, is the foundation of the health, safety, and environmental protection, welfare, and happiness of the community here. The Public Works Department is housed here in Town Hall, as well as the Public Works facility next door here. So we're currently about 17 positions. Not all are filled, but we are the largest department in the town, and of course the largest budget. I looked at the budget this year, and we're roughly around $7 million between salaries all the way up to capital and improvement projects, as well as fleet purchases. So Public Works has 5 utilities or areas that we're in charge of. That would be water, wastewater, stormwater, streets, transportation, parks, open space, and trails. When we're talking about the water, that is one of the more complicated issues here, especially here in Colorado. Water rights are very complicated, and in fact, I've heard a statistic that 50% of all water attorneys reside here in Colorado. So we have our own. We have a water attorney that helps us march through these, acquire additional water rights, and be able to serve the water to the community, as well as we have hydrologists. And it really is just a complicated area. Where this year we have a water drawdown study and a well field study for looking for a future water supply to stay ahead of development. Outside, that's more of the legal area, and we go into the physical area, which is the water treatment. We do have 2 water treatment plants and 11 wells used to supply for the potable water for Fraser. And then, as well as the distribution system, these are the pipes that take it from the treatment plant to the to each individual home and business. Roughly, we have 24.5 miles of water line, 230 or so fire hydrants, and 653 valves. And not only do we have to maintain these, so yearly or every couple of years, we actually touch each one of these valves or fire hydrants to operate it, exercise it, and ensure that they are working. The wastewater side, we are, as far as the Public Works Department, is in charge of the collection system. As Ed said earlier, the wastewater plant is under the JFOC. And so our job here within Public Works is to own and operate the collection system. So with that part, we clean and TV every part of this of the town every 3 years. So we have divided it in 3 years. So we TV it, we clean it, we review, we take a look at the condition of the system, do point repairs, and then future planning from what we see off of that as well. We have around 21.5 miles of sewer line and 679 manholes. So the next step, or the next department, is the stormwater, and that is maintain the existing water quality detention ponds around town. The engineering ensures that water quality and detention requirements are met with
with new developments. And stormwater is recently becoming more of a larger issue here in the valley due to all the construction between Winter Park, Fraser, all the way down the valley. And I do know that the state health department, CDPHE, is becoming more involvement in the area and doing more state inspections on construction. And this stormwater really is the stormwater quality ponds and detention ponds around the town really are trying to keep the pollution out of the waterways, such as Fraser River, Elk Creek, and the St. Louis Creek here in town. We also are in charge of the streets department, the streets transportation. Engineering looks at future planning, street maintenance plan for, as you can see in the picture there, that is some pavement there that is badly in need of repair. So that's what we're looking around all of town here. And we're also available to we do traffic studies, speed studies. We look at the crosswalks, and really one of our biggest emphasis or focuses right now is snow removal. And this is part of the crew here up on the screen here just before December, whereas we were waiting for snow. So we also maintain the parks, open space, and trails. As one of the most amazing times of the year is right after a cold, dark winter, and then we go into mud season. And then within a few weeks, all of a sudden, we have beautiful flowers, hanging baskets, and that transfers the town into a beautiful summer setting, ready for all our concerts and everything. And that's our town gardeners. And also we also try to hire up to 6 seasonal employees during the summer to help out with the new medians and to keep the town as pretty as it is during the summer. And as well as the Cousin Ranch open space, as Kathryn mentioned earlier, the Lions Ponds, the Fraser River Trail. Last year we took over a new area we call 4E, which is a lot of the open space areas within the Rendezvous area. It has a lot of trails. And due to those trails and a lot of other projects, we also team up with the Headwater Trails Alliance in town, so HTA. So, and then just putting a back of the napkin, looking at the total assets that Public Works manages and operates in town, looking at the water lines, the treatment facilities, wells, wastewater treatment lines, the roads, whatever. We're definitely north of $75 to $100 million of assets that we manage and maintain. So it's quite the operation. We also, Public Works, we're part of the emergency management. We assist in emergency management, such as like a couple of years ago with the fires out towards Grand Lake. We do have the personnel, the equipment, and the skills. Our primary duties would have been during the fires would have been evacuation. We would have been helping with traffic control and evacuation there. But at the same time, our utility group, which is shown on the screen here, exercising some fire hydrants, and it looks like a PRV on the right there, pressure reducing valve in the water system. They were actually scheduled and on staff, ready to go into Grand Lake after the fires had stopped. There were freezing temperatures. A lot of people were going in and trying to turn off taps and keep lines from freezing in the houses or and keep it from doing more damage. So we were, and we also as well cross-train with other water districts around us, and which really came to light during the COVID a couple of years ago, was how do we keep these water and wastewater systems going if a crew actually went down, with COVID and couldn't operate it. So we were cross-training between entities here, that way we can ensure that the safe drinking water, fire protection, et cetera, was still able to be provided to the communities. We also deal with the capital improvement plans, quite a few master plans that we're working on now. That's the 5 and 10 year plans for all the way down to the water rights, water supply, the property acquisitions, distribution system, looking at pipe construction, pipe replacement, Wastewater, the collection system, new pipes, pipe replacement plan there, streets, studies, even down to our fleet, our equipment, our trucks, and our admin vehicles. And then, as Kathryn mentioned, the land development life cycle. This is our development surfaces here, and this seems where I spend a lot of my time. You know, we in the public works, as well as some of our consultants, we do hire consultants to help us with this. We look at the engineering plans, drainage reports, utility reports, transportation reports, et cetera. A couple of our biggest developments, of course, are the Grand Park and the Byers Peak development. Rendezvous is pretty much all built out. They're finishing their final residential filing. They do have a couple of other mixed use down along 40, but nothing is proceeding at this time. And then, you know, during this process, we also do the construction inspection. We're looking at more of the taps, the street cuts out in the developments, and really doing the final public infrastructure acceptance. And that's the preliminary acceptance, the warranty, final surety reductions, et cetera. So, and really, if the public works is doing this, you don't know we're there most of the time. Everyone knows what the police does. They're out in the public, the fire's out in the public, but not everybody understands the task of the umbrella that the public works covers. When someone gets up in the morning and turns their water faucet on, the water magically comes out. I don't think people understand the water rights, everything that goes behind that to get that drop of water to that faucet. It started with the water rights, the construction, the planning, all the way down till today, where we have staff, which you see up on the screen there. These guys monitor and the water system 24/7, 365 days a year. We always have someone on call. We have alarms set up, SCADA systems, very elaborate systems where we can monitor all our wells, our reservoirs, and our pump stations and treatment facilities. So, you know, that all is on that side. And then when you flush your toilet, it magically goes away. Again, this is the environmental piece, I do believe, here, because this wastewater is contained within our pipes, and we make sure to keep it in our pipes and not on the ground, in the ground, or in worst case, someone's house or basement. But and that's part of the jetting and cleaning that we do every 3 years. But you know, we get this to the wastewater plant, so the professionals there can clean and treat this water before it returns back to the Fraser River, and to keep the Fraser River healthy there. And also just with the snow crew, these guys are out there at 4 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning. They're there to ensure that the people can go to work, the residents can go to work, and the tourists can make it to the mountains or the cross-country skiing, snowshoeing, and all the other outdoor recreation that we have here. And these guys are trying to get out there at 4 o'clock in the morning and get these roads open and safe and clear, and out of the way, so people can go about their daily business. And so there's a safe road. And so we have somebody during the winter. We are from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. with snow management. And then we work outside those hours as needed, as storms require. So, and then just a few other things. The O&M staff, the operation and maintenance staff, also performs vehicle and equipment maintenance and facilities, because we do have a number of facilities around town, such as the HTA building, the historic church on Eisenhower, even the the Pawn at Earth there at the railroad and Eisenhower. And we do have a 4.5 acre facility, a site outside of town, where we store construction materials and or snow during the winter. But thank you for your time. The dedicated Public Works employees are ready 24/7 to ensure the safety and health of this community, so the residents and tourists can enjoy living, working, and playing here in Fraser. Yeah.
Thank you, Russell. Give me just a second. I'll turn this over to Mike.
There we go. I forgot my other 2 slides, but just a minute.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Brack. I'm the assistant town manager here. I've been here for about almost 5 years, right behind Antoinette. I did get a business degree from CU, and I am looking to complete my master's in public administration by spring of next year. As far as the roles and responsibilities that I do, you can kind of see some of the bullets here. I do assist in kind of the regular day-to-day operations that's needed. There's all kinds of different issues and challenges that can come up any given day, which keeps things exciting. And also I will be the acting town manager as needed. A lot of my job is managing special projects and designing and implementing programs and different various initiatives that come up. Special projects is an interesting thing for my role. Typically when I'm about to finish one, I'm like, oh, I'm going to have some breathing room, and then just two more come up and they just kind of keep coming, which keep things interesting. I also represent the town at various conferences and meetings, and also working initiatives with local and regional stakeholders as well, to include the town of Winter Park. We'll get into some of the housing stuff that we're working with them here shortly, and really just any other various entities here in the county or outside the county. And I'll have some examples of those here later on. So with that, I definitely am spearheading a lot of the housing initiatives. There are already some great initiatives that are actually managed by Antoinette, our town clerk, for the deed restriction program. And a lot of work that's already been done and accomplished up to this point. And my focus is on new housing initiatives to help meet the challenge and really accomplish the Board of Trustees' goals to address, the need for affordable housing in the Valley, and to be able to provide that growth and kind of address this issue. I oversee the town marketing, communications, and economic development that go on in the town here. I have one direct report, who is Sarah Wick. She does our marketing communications, so I kind of oversee the work that she does and assist her with different things as needed. And she also is the sitting member on the Economic Development Advisory Committee. So I do kind of help her with some of the different initiatives that she takes on, and help provide some general guidance. But anyone who knows Sarah, she knows that she does an awesome job, and she really doesn't need a whole lot of management, which is pretty great. And she does a wonderful job for the town. Outside of land and zoning, different things, I also work a lot of the grants, application and administration, and even partnering sometimes with Kathryn as of recently for a county grant that we got for some of our open space projects. We definitely have a team mentality here. We work together on some of these grants. I usually defer to Kathryn's experience with this. She is the queen of grants, as we say a lot of times, and definitely take advantage of that institutional knowledge. I do a lot of the policy and ordinance analysis for new code provisions and amendments outside of land use and zoning. That can be anything from nuisance code violations to, hey, should we allow side-by-sides to be able to drive on town roads? That was a fun one. And so some things are more or less intense as code revisions are required, but I usually do a lot of the research and analysis on that and make recommendations for those changes. And then I work with the town manager to look at taking those to the board for approval, and get those code changes implemented, and the town clerk to get those new code revisions codified. One thing that another duty that I work with a lot is public transit. I usually have a pretty good relationship with the transit manager. Michael Cook was there for a long time, as he was listed earlier in this presentation as the interim, and he has moved on, but he is still assisting in that role as interim. And I just kind of help with any day-to-day issues they have with their operations manager that they have there. If we have ongoing construction, different things like that, I help get those addressed and help keep the buses running. And then look at any recommendations or changes that we need to improve our transit system, and look at the routes that we currently have and look at enhancing our transit system. It's a huge amenity here to the public. And we get a lot of compliments about that transit system, which is directly funded by that 1% restricted revenue fund. And it's a great thing that we have here, and it's a great thing to keep going and keep enhancing it. And as we all love and know, we have that other administrative duties as assigned. So part of the fun thing about our job is we constantly have new things coming up, some things that we have zero experience in, but a lot of things that at least someone does, and we figure out where our resources are there and figure out the best way to approach those things. So for housing initiatives that I'm working on, I've been working a lot on just some different land acquisition options. We did last week get the town board of trustees to approve an offer that was made by town manager Ed Cannon for a piece of land, and we are hoping that we can close on that contract and then pursue some really excellent grant opportunities to help acquire that land. And we will keep working that forever. Housing is not going anywhere, and we definitely need land to put housing on. And so that challenge is not going anywhere, and it's something that I am enjoying approaching there. And we are also looking at some just redevelopment areas of Fraser for some land that the town either owns or doesn't own. Another big initiative that I'm working on with the housing initiatives is the Regional Housing Authority. That is something that I'm working with our town manager Ed on, and as well as Winter Park. Their town manager and assistant town manager, Keith Riesberg, town manager, and their assistant town manager, Alicia Janes, is someone we've been working with a lot on this, and really just kind of working on as it says, a collaborative approach, building some partnerships and trying to go after creating this regional housing authority to encompass a much larger area with a really good revenue stream to actually put a dent in some of the housing challenges that we need, which is primarily funding. So that's something that we're in the middle of. We are looking at bringing a ballot initiative, hopefully November of this year, to the voters for approval, to provide a dedicated funding source that can only be used for those types of initiatives. We are looking at doing a housing needs assessment study update for that area, for whichever those district boundaries are identified for the special district that we're creating for this regional housing authority. To actually update the housing needs assessment study done in that area. And that'll help identify, how much housing is really needed, what different levels of income is that housing going to address, what are the best types of products of housing that will really help with. And it's a very comprehensive approach to, okay, what are the challenges that we're facing? What are the best ways to approach this? What are the recommendations moving forward? And that's something that's of huge value to this and can help provide some provisions based on our trends here in the county as far as how much more growth we can expect and what types of impacts housing can have to actually stimulate more commercial growth as well, because it's hard to have commercial growth without employees. So that's something that we're looking at helping. And last week I did actually submit a grant for about $50,000 to help take care of that study and do some pay for some of the preliminary research done by our legal team that we're working with for this Regional Housing Authority initiative. Another fun part of my job and something that the board's been really passionate about in these last few years is sustainability. And a lot of my projects, a lot of my special projects, as I said, a lot of times they tie into sustainability. And I do manage the drop recycling and pay-as-you-throw trash program and that facility there. And I do manage that direct report who works there at the drop, Rob. And so that's been a tremendous opportunity for us to help address a lot of the challenges with waste disposal in the area. Before that facility was built, a lot of commercial dumpsters behind businesses were being poached, overwhelmed with trash. Businesses couldn't even use their own trash cans because when people were leaving town, a lot of times they would just drive around till they could find a dumpster. And also we've had some challenges with recycling in the county. And this facility actually provides for as a free recycling facility for single stream use. So just kind of bring everything together and they drop it off. And the pay-as-you-throw trash program has really provided an excellent financial incentive for people to to, you basically pay for as much trash as you produce. So you can buy these bags. We have these yellow 40-gallon trash bags for $8.50. You can buy at several places throughout town here. And you basically pay for what you use. And if you learn how to use less waste and recycle more, then your bill actually goes down for how much you're paying for trash. So it actually works out great for that waste diversion and waste reduction initiative. I've also worked a lot with the electric vehicle charging stations here in town. We have installed a level 2 and a level 3 charging station. I was the primary driver on both of those after some board direction there. I was able to get grants for both of those charging stations, and they are alive and thriving even now with the cold winter months. We are seeing a lot of use with these electric vehicle charging stations, and are looking at I think a path forward at expanding those options here in the Fraser Valley, and getting funding for it. Another great initiative that we're working on right now is we are installing a 250 kilowatt solar PV system at the wastewater treatment plant. As you can imagine, these plants, you may see it from Highway 40, but it actually is quite the labyrinth underneath that main story. Very large facility. And if you can imagine getting a electric bill in the mail from Mountain Parks Electric for $18,000, you may have a panic attack. But that's what the electric bill for the wastewater treatment plant typically ranges between $15,000 and $18,000. So we are looking at putting in the solar the solar system here with a 12-year return on investment, which is going to work really well. It's working with some great programs that they have set up through Mountain Parks Electric, and that will provide for 20% of the power for 25 to 30 years for that facility, which is fantastic. So that's a great initiative that we're excited about. Some other things that we've done is we've replaced some of the high efficiency blowers at the wastewater treatment plant as well. Again, a lot of the heavy equipment there is huge electric power consumers, and the more efficient that we can make some of the equipment there, the better. And that's definitely something that's helped out a lot and lower our energy bill. We've hosted some community cleanup programs and events for residents. We continue to explore different opportunities to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions and look at different ways that we can divert waste here in the area. Just, we have a great sustainability focus. It's a great initiative to be able to provide for sustainable tourism. As we do continue to grow and evolve, it's important that we protect our greatest assets, which are the environment and all the wonderful outdoor amenities here. And another sustainability initiative that I thought I'd listen here is the Broadband Initiative that we're working on right now. And that is actually planned to go into the Middle Park Health new facility that will be constructed behind the Foundry in Fraser. And that'll really bring some really great opportunities for better internet usage and connectivity. And we all know how important internet is and how it'll be in the coming future, in the coming years. And that initiative we're excited about, and looking at different ways that we can help drive that forward. So that's really all I have.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. As you can tell, we do have a good staff here. Actually, I call it a great staff. Very professional, dedicated. They do a wonderful job of keeping the town moving, keeping the town operating, supporting our Board of Trustees. Kathryn said it very clearly. Our job is to build communities, and we all contribute to that community building effort. In fact, that's the reason why I became a town manager, is because I've been building communities in an unofficial manner for most of my life through the Air Force and even the private sector. We all take our jobs seriously. We're dedicated and professional, and I appreciate all the work that they do and all the support they give to our Board of Trustees. So this is actually the end of our presentation. I know we've covered a lot of material. We didn't want to get into too much detail, but I will say this, that my office is open. If you're running for office and you want to get some more information, please call Town Hall, make an appointment, come see me. I can talk to you either by phone or in person, and we can kind of get into the meat and potatoes of some of these some of the things that we've talked about today. I see a couple of hands up. I'm going to go ahead and open this up to Katie first. So go ahead, Katie.
Fabulous presentation by everyone. It's so informative. Was this recorded as well as you having your presentations in your PowerPoint?
Yes, we did record this this presentation.
See, it would be wonderful to be able to have access to this on our website, because I learned a bunch, and it was really great to walk back through all the accomplishments that have been made by the town over the last 5-8 years. It's really remarkable. So I just wanted to thank you all. You did an excellent job. And even though participation rate was a little low, I think in the future there could be a lot of people that benefit by reviewing this presentation. So attaboys, attagirls, job well done.
Thank you, Katie. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Lewis, I notice you have your hand up too.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm coming off mute. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, I raised my hand back a couple presentations ago, but I would echo Katie's comments. This is a great presentation, and if you could send it out or post it on this website, that would be great. I think a lot of people would benefit from seeing the presentation and what all the town staff has done to really make this community better. I was going to ask, actually, back to Kathryn, when she put up the zoning map, I had a question about it. Was kind of an odd in Grand Park, there's I think it's a 5-acre parcel that's zoned as business, which seems extremely odd to me, but is that correct? And if so, why was that zoned business in the middle of a planned development community?
Do you want me to go back to the zoning map, or there's no property within Grand Park that's specifically zoned business? There are some mixed use planning areas and commercial planning areas within the planned development district, but I think if you're talking about that red rectangle,
Correct.
that's that is not part of the Grand Park PDD. That's a 5-acre out parcel.
Right, I'm aware of that, but why is that zone business and not residential? Or
It had a similar zoning in the county, and then it was annexed into the town of Fraser, and he wanted a like zoning when it came into the town. And that parcel was actually part of a forced annexation for the Grand County Water and Sanitation ponds, because the town of Fraser was in conversations with those two other entities, and this was prior to the joint facility north of town. Grand County Water and Sand was looking at converting those lagoons into a mechanical wastewater treatment plant right there in the middle of Fraser.
so, I mean, I know the developer wanted to acquire that property and was not able to, but that individual could basically put businesses in that one area and on this property. If he sold it to whomever, they could put a big box store or something.
They could do what fits in the business zoning. Yes.
Interesting. Okay. All right. Well, that was my question, and I appreciate the other presentations. And Russell, your team has done an amazing job. I saw them digging out the fire hydrants the other day in the neighborhood, and they've done a great job keeping the streets clean. Just just an amazing staff. So I appreciate, all that you guys do.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Appreciate that. Russell also made a comment that that I want to echo as well. If when people wake up and they go about their business and they travel to and from work and they come home and everything works in their house and the streets are clear and they can drive, most people don't think about their local government. And that's almost a disservice because, quite frankly, there's a large contingent of people who are professional and dedicated to making sure that their lives are easier. I mean, the whole purpose of government, the reason it was formed originally thousands of years ago, was to protect personal lives and to protect property. And that's what we do here at Fraser. We have great support from our Board of Trustees, and we in turn provide, I think, exceptional support to our board. Our board is dedicated and are looking to move the town in great directions. And our job is to support that the best we can. So appreciate the opportunity to share some of this with you. Again, I'll leave this open. Let me go to that last slide. There are some resources that are available that help you maybe learn how to be a better trustee, a better mayor. For example, the Town of Fraser website, you can have access to our municipal budget, any of our master plans or downtown strategic plan, Cousin Space open plan if you want to read more information there. The Colorado Municipal League is an advocacy group that represents municipalities throughout Colorado. We have their role there is to provide training for municipal and staff, to provide networking and also provide advocacy. They monitor the laws that are coming before the Colorado legislature. They weigh in on these laws to protect the rights of municipalities and local governments. We have a member of one of our trustees, Eileen Waldo, serves on the policy committee. And quite frankly, they are a large advocacy group. And when they speak to our state lawmakers, they listen because they represent every single town and city in the state. And there's some great opportunities for more resources, the Colorado Municipal League, training materials for elected officials and so forth. Another great source is the Colorado Department of Local Affairs. This is a state-run agency, but they focus their attention and their support to local governments and to county governments. The Colorado Department of Local Affairs is a funnel for a lot of the federal and state funding that comes down and trickles to the municipalities. In fact, as a staff, when we have a capital project, our first call is typically to our DOLA representative, Greg Winkler, because they want to help and they provide funds for that. There's money for planning grants. There's money for construction. There's been money that supports local businesses. The Main Street program, for example, is another place where they funnel support. The American Rescue Act that came about through the COVID relief funneled tremendous amount of resources to the state, and the town of Fraser received over $360,000 of those funds. There's been other funding available, and right now there's an initiative. $30 million came to the state of Colorado to support affordable housing. All those funds are being managed and overseen by the Department of Local Affairs. The housing or the property that Michael had mentioned, the Operation Turnkey grant can provide up to 80% of the funds needed to purchase that land for affordable housing. They're anxious and willing to work with communities and municipalities, and they've got a lot of money and they'll help you spend it and help you get access to that. So again, you're welcome to contact me. You can go through the website. I think my email address is listed there, or you can call the town hall and schedule a meeting if you'd like. You can also reach out to our department directors if you want to dive down a little bit deeper. But again, we're here to support the Board of Trustees, and we hope this information was informative to you and maybe can help you shape some of your thoughts as you move into this election cycle there. So if there's no other questions, we'll call this a successful meeting. How's that? Okay, no seeing hands raised. We'll get this information on the website, a recording for this, and thank you for participating. And we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you. Is that somebody on the chat? Oh, got it.